Hey everybody, so today I'm going to show you how I animated my characters in my animated short, Autumn. I'm not going to show you the video in my tutorial because After Effects and Photoshop already take up a lot of memory, but it is posted in the link below, so be sure to check that out so you know what I'm talking about. So I animated my short in After Effects using the pin puppet tool, and that's the thing I'm going to focus on in this tutorial. So before you start animating your character, you want to create the character in Photoshop and have each part of the character on layers. So the face is on the top layer, the tail is the next layer, and the legs are, above the body layer, and so on. So now that you have all your limbs on different layers, you want to make sure you do something very important. It'll save you later when you pull it into After Effects. Make sure that all of your layers are layered from 1 is the top layer and then numbered down to however many layers you have. Because usually when you work in Photoshop, 1 is the bottom layer and it goes up from there. But when you pull into After Effects, it considers 1 to be the top layer. So when you do this, make sure that it's ordered from 1 is the top layer and whatever last layer it is, the largest number. So before you save it, you want to make sure your file is in RGB color because After Effects only reads RGB as a layered Photoshop file. If you have it in CMYK and you try to import it, it'll condense all the layers, and we don't want that. So you save it as a PSD, and I'm going to close Photoshop so I can use After Effects. You get your After Effects video set up. I already have my video set up, but in order to do your video, you'd go to New Project, and then within that project, you'd create a new composition. Since I already have mine loaded, we're going to show you how to import your file, but I'm not actually going to import it because all my files are already here. But you go to Import and File, and you pull up your Photoshop file, and you click Open, and it'll give you this window. And when you do this, make sure that the layer options are editable layer styles, because if it is merge layer styles into footage, all the layers will be merged into one, and you won't be able to edit any of them. So you click editable layer styles and OK. I already have my thing loaded, so I'm not going to do that. And you should see a folder that'll load here, and in that folder will be your layers. Select your layers and be sure not to select the background layer because your animation should already have a background layer. I don't have one because I don't need one, but when you're doing your animation, be sure to have a background layer. Usually I do the character separately, and then I pull it into that composition. So once you grab all your layers, you're going to drag them down into the Comp 1 window. I already have them dragged down here, so I'm not going to drag them down. But that's how you would put them in the Comp window. And make sure that all of your layers are connected to the layer beside that layer. So, for instance, layer 9, which is the face, is connected to layer 1, which are the eyes and the mouth. And the reason you want to do this is because when you animate it, you don't have to animate every single part. It'll all be connected. And the way you would connect the layers is you either use the pick whip tool, and you would connect it to the layer you want it to follow, or you use the drop-down menu. I usually use the drop-down menu because it's easier to find all your numbers and you don't accidentally select things you don't want to select. So each layer should follow a certain layer. So most of my layers follow the body layer because that's the layer that's actually going to be moving. And I animate all those layers independently from the body layer. Now, I already animated a good portion of my character to save time and not be redundant. So most of his limbs are already animated. But if you watch the animation, you can tell that the mane doesn't follow the face, and the front top leg doesn't actually move like everything else. So we're going to animate those two layers using the pin puppet tool. Also, when you're using the puppet tool, it helps to play back to see what the motion looks like. And the easiest way to do this is to click the RAM preview. You could click the play button, but what happens with that is it's not actually the real frame rate. So when you click the RAM preview button, it actually goes through the file and renders it, and then it's the right frame rate when you see it. So we're going to animate the front leg with the pin puppet tool. Now you have to select your layer and go up to this little pin here, and you click the pin and you'll get this little pin icon thing. And so what you do is you click the points you want to animate. So I usually follow the joints. So the joints of the arm would be the shoulder, the elbow, and the foot. This just makes it easier when you're animating it. It'll give it more mobility and it'll make more sense. So now it's pretty simple from here on out. You just go to the points where you want it to move, and the tweens will take care of all the motion from the starting point to the final point. So he's bending over, and then he's jumping. And this is really up to how you want to animate your creature. I want him to look like he's jumping. It's a pretty quick tutorial, so I'm not going to really focus on the nuances of this. But you'll get an idea when I'm done what it'll look like. So we're going to animate him. So here he is, all animated. And now what we want to do is play it back to make sure we like it. So it's not, you don't see it all later and realize you hate everything you did. So I'm going to play it back, and that's good enough for me. So now I'm going to show you how to make sure that hair follows that head. So we're going to go to the main file. Where is it? It's this one, I think. Yeah. And we select this and go to the pin puppet tool and then select the parts you want to move. So the top of the mane isn't following the head. The corner, I usually tackle the whole thing so it follows everything perfectly. And we would adjust it here. So it's fine here, but once it starts to leave the head, make sure it follows it so when the tweens go through, it all looks all right. So here it is. It's following his little head. Make sure you adjust everything within this one frame so when you select the new frame, it all looks right. So his head moves here, so we want it to follow that. Now, depending on how much memory your computer has, you might be able to see these motions, but because mine can't really process it, I have this blurriness that comes up. So I just have to troubleshoot all that. So you keep moving it, or just jumping. And it looks like it gets away from his head here, so you move it back down. Same here. Now this probably isn't going to be perfect because I'm not really taking the time to make sure, but usually what would happen is I do this part and go back and fix the nuances to make sure everything looks alright. So this is good enough for me. He looks fine, rather dapper. So now you play it back to see if it does what you want it to do. No, it looks a little wonky, but I'm not going to go back and fix it. I forgot to select this and make it right, so later it'll come back. But like, as you can see, if there's anything that's messed up, you can always go back and change it, either by actively doing it or going into the graph editor and deleting the points you don't like. And you can also make the points bigger this way. Oh wait, not that way. This way. So you can see exactly where it goes off. And you just select the point and delete it. I'm not going to do that, but as you can see, everything is animated. And notice how it also moves over here. So we're going to go and change that as well. So really it's quite a simple tool to use. It just takes a few tries to get used to it. But once you do it, you come up with a pretty cool animation that you don't have to animate by hand. The program kind of does it all for you. So it's a pretty cool tool, and that's all I'm going to show you today. When you're done with your animation, you want to export it, and so you go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue, and you make sure that every setting here is right. Output 2 would be the file name. Usually when I do the output module, I change it from lossless to H264, and that's just because lossless is very large and rarely plays perfectly on anything, and so it ends up lagging. It's not that good. And then you select render, file or render, you can click it, you can play it, you can upload it places. It's pretty cool. So that's the end of my tutorial, and I hope you guys learned something. I guess I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.